Now, the Shure SM7B might be the microphone you want, but the Deity VO7U might be the microphone you can afford. And I think for a lot of people, regardless of price, the Deity VO7U is probably a better microphone. And for me, I own both of the microphones, and you will notice in a lot of my recent videos, I'm using the Deity VO7U over the Shure SM7B. And if you don't own either of these microphones yet, obviously the first thing that you're going to notice is the price difference. And the price difference is even more than you think once you sort of dig into it a little bit. Now, the Deity VO7U, you're going to be able to buy the base model kit, which comes with a little desktop stand. That's under $170. And with the boom arm kit, you're under $200. The Shure SM7B, just the microphone alone, is $400. Even a cheap boom arm that's going to be good enough for the Shure SM7B is going to be at least $60. You're going to be up for another $20 for the cable. And you're going to be around $80 for the cheapest audio interface that will run the Shure SM7B. And the audio interface I suggest for that is the PreSonus AudioBox Go. That has enough gain, clean gain, to drive the Shure SM7B. But now we're up to something like $580 versus the Deity VO7U, which we're starting at under $170. Now, the prices on both of these microphones and all this equipment changes quite a bit. So in the description down below, I will put some best price links that actually just allow you to go through and check and compare the prices from a number of the top suppliers. So regardless of when you're ready to buy or which one you choose, you can go down there and find the best price you can get right now. So even though I already own both of these mics, there's a number of reasons that I do use the Deity over the Shure SM7B. And the first thing is the fact that it's a USB microphone makes it super portable and easy for me to use in all kinds of places and with all kinds of different devices. With the Shure SM7B, you're going to have to bring, obviously, the microphone, a stand, you're going to have to bring an XLR cable, you're going to have to bring an audio interface, and you're going to have to bring a USB cable for the audio interface. So there's a whole bunch of gear you're going to have to carry around with you if you want to remotely use the Shure SM7B. With the Deity VO7U, all you're going to need is the microphone, a little desktop stand, which can sort of fold up into a tiny little tripod pack, and the cable that came with it, the USB-C cable. Now, in addition to that, the Deity VO7U, because of it's a USB-C compatible microphone, it's also going to work with your iPad or your computer or your phone. Any USB-C compatible device that can operate with USB-C microphones is going to work with the Deity VO7U. Now, these microphones do share a number of features, and the first one is they're both dynamic microphones. And this is pretty important. If you are considering a USB microphone that you want to sort of use instead of the Shure SM7B or sound maybe close to as good as the Shure SM7B, you need to buy a USB microphone that is also a dynamic microphone. Dynamic microphones are designed to really capture the sound of your voice when you are very close to it and reject the background sounds and reverberations off the walls and perform well in imperfect sound environments. And they give your voice that sort of radio broadcasty sound. That's kind of what they're designed to do. So you definitely want to get a dynamic microphone. Both of these microphones are dynamic microphones. Now, both of these setups are going to give you the ability to monitor your audio in real time. With the Shure SM7B, you're just going to have to use your headphones and plug those into your AudioBox Go audio interface. The nice thing with the Deity microphone is you're going to be able to plug your headphones just right into the microphone. So it just keeps it all in one place, and your control for the volume of those headphones on the microphone is also right on the microphone. So it's all sort of right there, not in the separate device. But they both have the ability, both these setups have the ability to real-time monitor your audio. Both of these setups are going to give you gain control to control how strong the signal is going into the computer. With the Shure SM7B, once again, you're going to be able to control that with the AudioBox Go. With the Deity VO7U, the gain control is right on the microphone. So you're just going to control the gain straight on the microphone. Once again, just a little bit easier all in one place with the Deity microphone. Now, the Shure SM7B has a couple of switches in it which allow you to control the frequencies or the way the microphone sounds before it even gets into the audio interface. It has a high pass filter, which cuts down on sort of low frequencies going into the microphone, so that can take a little bit of bass out of your voice, or it can sort of clean up some rumbling or sort of background humming in the environment that you're in. It also has a presence boost, which just sort of boosts the mid frequencies and gives a little bit more clarity. Now, I think this microphone particularly needs that presence boost to sort of sound its best. And when we look at the Deity VO7U, I think what we're going to find is those frequencies are kind of boosted in that microphone already. So So the Shure has these switches to kind of tune it in. And once you tune it in and use these switches to make the microphone sound the best, I think it tends to sound a little bit more like the Deity microphone right out of the box. So there isn't a huge advantage there, but you do have some control of shaping the way the microphone sounds straight in the microphone with the Shure SM7B. Now the Deity VO7U has a mute switch, which you can't do that with the Shure SM7B. This is great if you're using it in live streams or teleconferences or any situation where you want to be able to pause that audio so people can't hear what you're saying. You have absolutely no option for that in the Shure SM7B, but in the Deity microphone, it's just a little button on the back. As I said, great for streamers, teleconferences, and things like that, particularly live things where you want to be able to mute that audio. The Deity VO7U also has an analog limiter. This is absolutely huge and probably one of the biggest reasons that I often use the Deity microphone over the Shure microphone. And what the analog limiter does is if you have set your gain too high or a loud noise comes or you get excited and start yelling, with the Shure microphone, if you get to the top of your gain range that can handle going into the computer, you will get clipping or distortion. With the Deity VO7U, it's almost like having an autopilot in there that if you get too loud, it turns down the gain for you, which is really, really clever. Now, the audio doesn't sound nearly as good as if you had the audio set right to begin with or your gain set right to begin with, but it does save your audio and you will have usable audio and you won't have really bad distortion or really bad clipping. So this is a huge difference between these two microphones. And normally an analog limiter is only found in very, very premium products, and it's pretty cool that Deity has put it in this sort of budget-friendly USB microphone. Now, love it or hate it, you've got the RGB colors on the Deity microphone. I mean, I don't tend to use them, but if you're somebody that is streaming or gaming or doing anything where you're kind of projecting those different colors on the wall, I think the 12 selectable color and function RGB thing is a pretty obvious thing. You can just tune it in to use the colors and go with the rest of your setup or brand, what have you. So I think it's a pretty cool thing, and there's no harm in having it there because you can just turn it off, and I always use it turned off, but it is something obviously that isn't in the Shure SM7B, but is in the Deity VO7U. Now, both the microphones have removable pop filters, but what you find is when you remove the pop filter from the Shure SM7B, there is no plosive protection underneath really, and so the microphone is not really usable that way. The Shure microphone, if you take it off, it does have like a level 1 of plosive protection underneath, and the microphone looks pretty cool once you take it off. So depending on how you're using it or how far away from your mouth it is, you can use it without this extra level of plosive protection. Now, in addition to that, the grill on the top of the microphone is removable, so you can take that off and you can actually clean that area of the microphone. So this is really clever, particularly in these times where we're all worried about COVID and stuff and people are right up on top of the microphones. That is just a way to keep it a bit more sanitary, and it gets a little bit gross looking from talking into it for a long time. You just take it off, wipe it down, and put it back on. That's something you obviously can't do on the Shure SM7B. Now, the Shure SM7B has a frequency response of 50 Hz to 20 kHz. Human hearing starts at 20 Hz and goes to 20 kHz. The Deity VO7U covers the entire spectrum of human hearing and starts at 20 Hz, like most premium microphones do. So it starts at 20 Hz and goes all the way up to 20 kHz. That doesn't mean necessarily that the sound coming out of the Deity microphone is better, but it does represent the fact that you are actually capturing the whole spectrum of human hearing, which you are not capturing on the Shure microphone. Now, when we look at the build quality, I think you're obviously going to think, oh, this microphone is so much cheaper than the Shure microphone. It's got all these extra features. Obviously, the build quality is where we're going to sacrifice something. And what you find is if you handle both of these microphones, it's absolutely not the case. And actually, I would say they both feel completely equal in build quality, which was one of the biggest surprises to me about the Deity VO7U. It feels just about as heavy as the Shure microphone. It has a very similar materials that it's made of. The yoke mount, I think, is every bit as good as the Shure microphone, and I actually like the look of the single arm on it, and it's not flimsy whatsoever. So when you compare the build quality on these two microphones, I think you put them side by side, nobody's going to guess that the Shure microphone is going to cost you 3 to 4 times the price for that setup. I think they would think that build quality wise and the quality of these microphones just looking from the outside, they're absolutely on par with each other. And the final thing we got to talk about is the audio quality. How do these two microphones sound compared to each other? Well, through this entire video, you've actually been hearing me switch back and forth between the two microphones. And anytime you saw my face on the screen, what you were actually hearing was the Deity microphone. And anytime you saw something else that wasn't my face on the screen, you were hearing the Shure SM7B. You might very well notice there was a difference between the sound of the two shots, but I think it's highly unlikely that you thought to yourself, wow, this sounds $400 better than that. And the reason I made this video is kind of the whole purpose behind this channel, which is trying to get the best in audio and video with the gear that you can afford or the gear that you already have. So rather than saving up for a Shure SM7B, if the Deity VO7U is actually much cheaper and potentially a better fit for you, it doesn't really make any sense to spend that extra money.